Once again, we bring you greetings from the Secretariat of the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, NINAS. At this time, as we put in finishing touches to the preparations for what we do next, having observed all the consultations that needed to be observed from the point of the proclamation of the constitutional force majeure on December 16th, 2020. 90 days for the federal government, 30 days for the state governors and the elected officials from all the alliance territory, and 120 days for the peoples of Nigeria and the international community, which culminated in the march at the UN in their 76th General Assembly, in which we also addressed a letter to the UN Security Council. At this time, we go back to what we wrote will be our next action, next line of action in that proclamation, where we said clearly that we will be reconsidering if we can find common ground. If no solution, is brought to the table, in all the period we'll be consulting, that we will go into reconsidering our allegiance. When I say we, I'm talking about the alliance, the South and the Middle Belt, the peoples of the South and Middle Belt, who are facing this, onslaught from these Fulani and invaders, supported by the federal government of Nigeria. We said clearly that we will be reconsidering our allegiance to the 1999 Constitution, which empowers them to do all of what they're doing in all the territories. And so, where we are now, for people who have been asking, we get a torrent of questions have been coming from, everywhere to the Secretariat. There are a whole number of people, for some strange reason, they seem not to have been aware of what NINAS was doing or what the constituent organizations have been doing over the years. But let me run through it in a moment so that everybody can come to where they now see where we are and what we need to be doing next. So they can situate the next line of action appropriately. What happened was that Nigeria, that was not working for anybody, came to where a few of us decided to, examine why things were like that and to take, remedial actions, whatever they would be. And it began with, we saw when the soldiers occupied the government house, the story of how Nigeria came about as a British enterprise in 1914 is too well known to bear any further repetitions. We saw all of how we agreed to be a secular union, a federation and a secular union, going into independence, to be one country. And we also know about the point in 1966 when soldiers came calling and the 5 constitutions that defined the federation of the time got toppled. And then further down the road, elements that wanted Sharia all the while from the far northern flank of Nigeria then imposed Sharia in their space in year 2000, having imposed a constitution that took us away from being a federation between 1967 and 1979. So we went away from being a federation and went away from being a secular union on account of all of this. And so we saw when the elections happened in 1993 and how Abiola won the election and how he was stopped and killed. It then became basis of agitation, very serious agitation from the western flank of Nigeria. Progressively, it came to where a resistance was put up by some of the soldiers some of the colleagues of the soldiers who were in the government house at the time, to say, look, it can't be so. Let us go back to, find a way to get back to establishing democratic order. And that was what became NADECO. Now, NADECO succeeded in getting rid of, soldiers who were occupying the government house and occupying power illicitly. But by the time in 1999, the civil rule was restored. The constitution that was imposed by decree in 1979 was again brought back by almost the same set of soldiers. We remember it was Obasanjo that was the midwife for the 1979 edition of that decree. And then they brought him from prison to again install him as the one who has to reinvigorate, put life back to that 1979 edition, which became 1999 constitution that we have now. And so we came to where that unfinished, there was an unfinished business of NADECO, which became the business of PRONACO that we summoned in year 2005, 2006. The NADECO got rid of the soldiers from Government House, but the constitution by which that democracy will be undertaken was not put in place. And so we wound down because we found ourselves progressively in need of working out totally new constitutional arrangements away from what was progressively imposed in 1967. And so some of the actors in the NADECO, had gone to do other things. Bola Tinubu became governor in Lagos. A few other people went, some went to be senators, some went to be, minister, all such. And therefore, a decision was taken to rest that platform called National Democratic Coalition. It was. The reason we decided to rest it is that the transaction has moved away from attempting to bring back democracy. Since there was not civil rule and many people thought they had gone back to democracy. You can see even the media, everybody reporting what was going on in Nigeria as democracy. But for those who know what democracy is, being government of the people, by the people, for the people, there are three distinct legs. Government of the people means that the people will determine the constitutional arrangements as an incident of their sovereignty. They are the ones who have to set the rules, the ground norm. By the people means that only the vote of the people will take people to power. For the people means that those who wield power will do so only for the benefit of the people. Of course, controlled by the constitution already installed by the people. So government of the people, by the people, for the people is not some fancy definition. It's a three-compartment, like the roots of a tree, the trunk, and the the foliage. That's the branches and the leaves. In a building, the foundation, the vertical columns where you find all the walls and pillars, and the roofing structure. We talk about politics and policy. The polity is the foundation producing the politics we see, and then the policies that come out from it in that order. So I've given an example of a tree in three parts, a building in three parts, and a country in three parts: foundation, vertical column, and the roofing structure. Polity, politics, policies. It is in that sense that we can say authoritatively that Nigeria does not have any democracy. Anybody who wishes to argue that will only be exposing his own ignorance, because our democracy, our so-called democracy, does not pass any of these three legs of test. We did not make the constitution. Those who occupy power do not depend on our votes in the manner democracy demands. And those who wield power, those who are in Government House, do not owe us any obligation and do not care about any of us. And so, however we manage to label it a democracy, the reason it has been so is because we have not made a constitution that would define that democratic space. For two questions of whether we are still in this union as agreed or as can be, and the terms under which we interact in all things. So those two questions were the things that had to now be done, in addition to having gotten rid of the soldiers from Government House. And that was what the pro-national conference organizations, of which I was one of the conveners, along with Chief Enohoro and Professor Wolin Shenka and all kinds of other people, Dim Chukwemeka Ojukwu, and a whole number of other people, PRONACO. We convened PRONACO to do that unfinished business of NADECO, having rested the NADECO platform. Of course, in resting it, we also kept it alive, for occasional, like now, a body of statesmen, elders, who once in a while will come to make us, especially in the anniversaries of some key things that happened in the period the Nadeko fight was on between 1994 and 1998 when Abacha moved on. And so this explanation has become necessary because of what he had a few days ago of some fellows who sprang up in the U.S. to say that they are Nadeko U.S. I happen to be the organizing secretary of that Nadeko from the time we arrested the platform, because we moved on to Pronaco that then called a meeting of the owners of Nigeria to decide how they will want to proceed. 2 years producing an outcome, a draft constitution that could have taken us back to being a federation as we went to Aburi to try to discuss. From there, we went on to the enforcement, the implementation phase, which we called Movement for New Nigeria. That Movement for New Nigeria is a matter of getting that new consensus that emerged from Pronaco into place and winding up the impositions that came from 1967, unitary impositions. And so we went to court in May of 2007 to begin the process by saying that we didn't make the constitution. From that point, we kept mobilizing all of those who should get involved, the nationalities across the length and breadth of Nigeria, because in Pronaco, it was still the whole country discussing. It was after we had reached that consensus, and this, the Sharia belt progressively pulled away from that consensus. At the time the rest of us were trying to get it to happen, they were moving more towards their Sharia. And we said, okay, goodbye, farewell in your Sharia. You have seceded from a secular union. We have done our best to explain to you that it can be so. Since that is what we prefer, we interpreted it to mean self-determination. And the rest of us, that is the South and the Middle Belt, then moved on to that, coming together to dismantle the impositions that have been done by decree since 1967. And that's what became, the regional, we had to delineate into 3 blocks, the Yoruba block, because we are now going for our own self-determination, since our compatriots have moved away in self-determination into Sharia. So it was in that process of getting ready for how we exercise our own self-determination that we had to put geography to it. 3 blocks of Yoruba in one part, the eastern half of southern Nigeria, which is called the Lower Niger Territory, made up of the South and Southeast that Nigeria decides to call them today, and the Middle Belt, as nationalities that are cooperating together for how to extricate themselves from the union of death Nigeria has become for them. And so the 3 blocks were encouraged to take steps to show that they have also rejected, that they rejected that constitution, as imposed on them. And this was what became the solemn assemblies that happened in Port Harcourt for the Lower Niger Territory on the 27th of April in 2015. And the Yoruba solemn assembly that happened in Ibadan on the 7th of September in 2017, as well as the one in the Middle Belt that happened on the July 18th of 2018. And having all repudiated that constitution to the seeing of the international community, having repudiated, all arrangements that are anchored on that constitution, we then came out together in 2018, December 11, at the Lagos, the Freedom Park Proclamation in Lagos, to jointly proclaim that we will not proceed to other elections under that constitution. And we've arrived at the point. We've arrived at the point where that decision of Freedom Park Proclamation came to the implementation, the consensus, what the peoples of Nigeria are saying in self-determination, in rejection of that unitary constitution, in rejection of the union of master and servant, in rejection of the union of death that Nigeria has become. We set out to now bring it to be seen, before the whole world, that we will not, that our union is no more, and that we are more interested in how to extricate ourselves from it and rework the basis of our relationships. And that was what we did on the 16th of December in 2020. The constitutional force majeure that was declared is to enforce this consensus by this majority rejecting that constitution imposed by this minority. Today we woke up to all kinds of military operations being ordered all over the place. Of course, we knew what was happening in the east, the rogue Biafran franchise that was going about killing people in the name of unknown gunmen, ESN, and whatever was all their names. Yes, nobody can subscribe to such a nonsense. But beyond the need, beyond what is on the surface, if you look deeper, you will see that an operation that covers the rest of the country away from the Sharia belt has been launched. If you want to understand what the operation is all about, in the midst of the contestations going on right now in Nigeria, the union dispute we declared in December has gone through all of the kind of sensitization and mobilization that should go with such a campaign for self-determination by this 75% of the country, both in landmass, population, and even more than 90% in terms of assets, the positive assets, both human and material resources that constitute that Nigeria. And so we come to where all that process, all that telling the whole world, telling the whole community what is happening, culminated in the march at the UN General Assembly, the 76th session of UN General Assembly in New York. Of course, I'm sure most of us saw the videos of Nigerians that came to tell the world that there's now that the union was disputed and that there's an ethnic cleansing operation being executed against them, the indigenous nationalities, by the invading Fulani population, heavily armed militia, operating as Fulani herdsmen in one part, operating as Boko Haram, operating as bandits, but supported by the federal government of Nigeria, headed by a Fulani man called Muhammad Buhari. And so the global community has taken note of that. There's a letter addressed to the Security Council, conveying the message of the protest, the march. So the purpose of this broadcast is to alert us that the response of the Fulani to all of this is to now go back to their good old talk I shoot you response. And that is the reason for this operations announced in 4 that will happen in 4 locations. But we are looking beyond what they say. We are looking at this map until we agree on the terms of the union, all in self-determination, however we come to do that. This map will continue to be the guide for interpreting whatever anybody is doing in the name of government of Nigeria. And therefore, we invite all of us to place the principal actors in this whole shenanigan on this map. Let us see who is the commander-in-chief of that army that is deploying in these 4 geopolitical zones. The southwest, the southeast, the south-south, and the north-central, whatever. Who is the commander-in-chief? He falls on the Sharia side of this map. Who are the heads of the forces? The police, the army, the Air Force, the DSS, all the agencies that will be pointing guns at people in this period. Let us see where they come from. They come exclusively from the Sharia belt. Who are the receiving end of the brutalizations that will happen, the killings that will happen? All of them are from the alliance territory. So unless we resolve the question of the union agreement, everything being done will be interpreted against the backdrop of this map. So let nobody come thinking that he's coming in the name of Nigeria because he's wearing the green, white, green, or so whatever colors Nigeria gave to them, whether in uniform or in non-uniform. The important thing is that this project is disputed. The most urgent thing we require to do is to go and discuss the terms, to work out how we can restore the damaged constitutional basis of the defunct Federation of Nigeria. Yes, we still have a country, but our federation died in 1967 after the meetings of Aburi. The outcome of Aburi was abandoned. And so the unitary Nigeria is no longer, as defined by the 1999 Constitution, is no longer our project. So those who are coming into our spaces pointing guns at everybody, instead of going to address the source of the dispute, as declared, as proclaimed, as outlined by the constitutional force majeure and all the other agitations going on across the land. Those who refuse to address the source of the problem, but whose only response to all disputations and agitations is to point guns at people. Let us be clear in our minds that that operation has been launched in the name of Nigeria, but the people who are at the receiving end are not seeing any Nigeria. They are seeing an invasion. They are seeing an attempt at conquest, because the constitution that brings us together, has been defeated by the democratic actions of this majority, and the international community have been fully informed. And so we only ask our people to please be vigilant. Our people across the alliance territories to be vigilant and to know that we are in the midst of a war. And that war is going into another phase, from the phase of pretense. The determinant for who will prevail in that war will be whether all of us who have repudiated and rejected this constitution of master and servant will go with those who imposed that constitution on us from this Sharia belt to another election that will renew the life of that constitution. Everything that will happen in that war is now dependent on whether we proceed to another election under that constitution, or whether we're able to stop them from going to renew the life of that constitution by the election of 2023. Let us get it clearly. The caliphate, the people who are pointing guns at us in the name of Nigeria, their title deed, the instrument that brings them to our various spaces, is that constitution. Our actions over the last 22 years have defeated that constitution. So the constitution is dead. They know it. But they now want to go to conquest. They want to push and defeat, physically seizing the lands, in ethnic cleansing, killing off the owners of the land. They already threw our borders open to bring in Fulani from everywhere. They are in joint venture with ISIS that became ISWAP, and it is in an attempt to re-establish their ownership and control over the entire territory called Nigeria, in joint venture with ISIS, that all these things are happening. That they are refusing to come to discuss the terms of the union. And people have been crying about restructuring and all kinds of things, new constitutional. They refuse, and they are pointing guns at everybody. We must know that if we are serious, if we are determined to end our enslavement under that constitution, we must now say we can't go to another election. That's the only thing the international community is waiting for us to do. That's the strategy that is at our disposal right now to defeat them, by saying we can just insist we can't go to another election. The political parties have been addressed a whole number of times. This is the time for those who are in that danger. The Yoruba, the Ijaw, the Igbo, the Ogoni, the Anang, the Efik, the Berom, the Thief, all of us who are in that danger, this is the time to stand up and say we cannot proceed to go to renew the life of that constitution. If we're able to do that, many things will begin to change. If we refuse to do that, we are setting ourselves up for a real hard time ahead. As we say all the time, knowledge is power. And this particular knowledge coming from what we're telling you at this time can mean life or death. Those who do not know that we're at war will go and throw themselves out in the name of Nigeria, and they'll be killed for nothing. But for those who want to become conscious and become active, whether they live in Nigeria or elsewhere, please, you are invited to go to the website of either NINAS or the Lower Niger Congress. NINAS is www.ninasvoice.org. Lower Niger Congress is www.lowernigercongress.org. I would think we can let it go at this time. we'll be addressing you a few more times in the days ahead to prepare us for the response that we must now have to put up for this aggression that has become naked. Thank you.